obviously one of the more controversial issues in this town at this point has to do with the police department and tasers. And I'm right in the middle of this thing, given that my daughter just graduated. I'm supposed to be the police expert now that I have a daughter on the police force in Columbus, Ohio. But nonetheless, we have a new interim police chief, Tom Dresner. I think he's doing a remarkable job. I'm very impressed by the man. Tasers have obviously become an issue because of the McDuffie incident on the bridge over I-70. I was assured, I met with Bill Watkins and the police chief to talk about a lot of these issues since it's on the public's mind. And I really told them, and I thought this went way beyond tasers. This is really a public relations issue, and it has to do with the relationship of the police department and the community, and I think it's a leadership issue. So it's a much broader thing, but nonetheless, we're focusing on tasers because we got the grant to buy 40 tasers. They're on the shelf, and next month, supposedly the police officers are supposed to start their training. I was invited to train along with them, and I intend to do that. But because of this incident, I don't want to prejudge this, the report is not in, we're supposed to get it within a reasonable period of time. It's supposed to be exhaustive, and as I understand it, some of it will admit some mistakes that were made. I'm not sure where this is going yet. But nonetheless, the police chief decided that he would hold 2 public sessions. Last week he did that, information sessions. I attended one of them, and there was a lot of good dialogue about the devices themselves and the training, the policy and training that the police department has, which is what this is all about, I think, in terms of tasers. And I supplied a lot of information to the police department, about 400 pages or so, of International Association Police Chief Guidelines and some other RAND studies and so on that really set the national standards for policy and training. And the police chief and his staff responded in kind by answering. There was 54 points, 54 recommendations, national recommendations, and they answered them point by point. Right now, they're going through that process, and at least the police department is asserting that they at least meet those standard guidelines or exceed them. There are still a lot of folks out there in the audience that are not happy and are suggesting the kinds of things like more openness, a review of some of these things that were on film, closer cooperation with the medical community in terms of if there are repeated tasings, that kind of thing. And now, we were talking about this before the show, it's gotten even more complicated because the sheriff's department, the county sheriff's department, is purchasing high-powered rifles, right, some of which the Columbia Police Department already has. And I guess my position on this whole thing at this point is just collecting information, making sure the policy and guidelines are in the right place, and assuring that there is more accountability and transparency to the public. The public is demanding another task force to study this issue.
Tasers?
Tasers. What do you think?
The Taser Task Force.
The Taser Task Force.
So this is a grant-driven issue? That you got a grant and you're...
No. They just wanted...
They wanted... with a new grant?
Oh, yes. That was it. There was a federal grant, a $38,000 grant. Randy Bain, when he was still the police chief, decided that the best use of those funds was for tasers, and he bought them.
And how many did he?
40.
40 tasers?
So that they can outfit the rest of the police department. And we have 37 now, I believe. So the public, some of the public is clamoring for a resolution that appoints a task force to study this so that there is a moratorium on the distribution of those tasers until there are recommendations from a task force.
You know what's funny about these crime issues is there seems to be more debate about fighting crime than about crime itself. When there's a new method brought in like tasers to fight crime, there seems to be a louder controversy that arises over it than when someone gets the living bejesus knocked out of them.
And that's the alternative.
Yeah, and
or worse.
That newspaper carrier who was beaten within an inch of his life by a couple of thugs here a few months ago inspired very little discussion, other than blogging and a little bit of muted outrage. But and we've been besieged with this kind of thing here. And it's just interesting to me that doesn't. I wish there were an equally loud controversy there. I mean, I understand the issue with tasers, and I understand people's concerns with them, but they're doing the damage that's really being done here is coming from a criminal element that is just having its way in our community, and that I really would like to see this.
Well, I think the discussion
arise.
is really starting, and it's really starting on the basis of, it goes beyond just, this is kind of like a zoning question in your backyard. You know, it's the kind of thing that brings people out. And I think they have learned a lot, and I think the police chief has gone the extra mile to try and open this up, and I think that's absolutely essential. I really think that's going to be the answer to this. It's going to be a leadership answer, and it's going to take leadership to improve the relationship between the community and the police department. And that, you know, we're going to get into this as well now that we have probably a recommendation from the Police Civilian Review Board. It will probably be put into effect in some incarnation. The details have yet to be worked out. We don't know exactly how that's going to work. But I guess just to be honest about it, I have I'm a bit apprehensive about unilaterally disarming the police department. I think these improvements have to come with public relations, but boy, there's still a lot of bad guys out there, and frankly, I can't justify.
I think there's room
disarming
in the arsenal, and you got to call it the arsenal. I think there's room in the arsenal for a less lethal weapon, one that is less lethal, typically, than a billy club or a gun. I also think that the best weapon is the weapon that's never used.
Yeah.
But if you pull it, you got to be prepared to use it, and so there ought to be guidelines. And well, I'll finish, and this may be simplistic, but I'll give you a good wish. You mentioned at the beginning.
Be quick.
You had been invited to participate in the training.
Yeah.
If that's true, make sure you did not sign up to be the test crash dummy.
Actually, I intend to do that.
Oh.
But and there are ways to do that. But at any rate, we'll have to finish that up at some other time. Once again, the hour has slipped by with all of these silver-tongued devils here. Right. So from all of us here at Counterpoint, and until we meet again, good night to you, and we'd like to see you back, hope to see you back.